Hi everyone, it's Vanessa, and today I wanted to finish up talking about the things that I ended up reading in the later half of December. And this is not including what I read for Cramathon because this video would be so long, but the things that I did want to talk about in this video: finishing Fingersmith, reading My Brilliant Friend, and starting the two graphic novels. I'll start with Fingersmith. Fingersmith by Sarah Waters was a book that I read for a buddy read, and it also satisfied one of my read harder challenges. It's basically a book about thieves, and these thieves thinking that they are going to take advantage of this country girl. The thing that you have to know that really is basically what this book is about is that nobody is what they seem. I thought this book was incredibly beautifully written. Sarah Waters is very good at making you transport to this time and this place. It's set in London as well as the countryside outside of London in 1862. So her attention to detail is pretty amazing. Down to every little thing, everything matters. When we were doing the buddy read, we were all like figuring out little things, like we'd be looking up book titles that they mention here. One of the people in our group, Liz, would tell us lots of things and enlighten us about Victorian manners and clothing styles and why that mattered to the plot. The book is divided into 3 parts, and the first part literally read like a thriller. In and of itself, I think it could have been its own novel. It really messed with you psychologically. Case in point, this is my reaction the second after I finished reading part 1. What? Okay. I have not been surprised by a book like this in a really long time. I am mind blown. I can't believe this. What? After that moment, this book was like a 4.5 for me. I was so shocked by how exciting it had been and how unexpected that first part was to me. However, this book is almost 600 pages long. After part 1, we get a lot of reversals, we get a lot of redos, and we get narrator changes as well, so it's not the same person telling the story the entire time. To me, and I think to the rest of our group reading this sort of slowed down the pace for us, didn't have us as excited to read it as we had been during part 1. There are a lot of things in this book that felt like they were being described just because it's trying to add to the atmosphere of the time period and where this is all taking place. And definitely there were parts where we started sort of, not like totally skimming, but like sometimes I was reading more for the dialogue because it did feel a little bit like it was getting bogged down when we were around page like 400. To me, the conclusion didn't feel as satisfying after we had to continue reading those next 400 pages after part 1. So I'd say to you, if you are a detail-oriented person, you really enjoy getting all these descriptions of this time period, if you love this time period, but you would want to read more like gritty and a story more about the downtrodden people in this time, more than like the ladies and the nice rich people. If you enjoy reading about villains and like sketchy people in general, this would be an interesting book as well. So I liked it. I definitely thought after reading part 1 that I would love it, and it didn't quite get there for me. The next thing that I read was My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. I wanted to get to this so I could give myself a check mark for my goals, because this is one of the books that I really wanted to get to in 2016 after hearing so much about it. This book is divided into 2 parts. It's childhood and then it goes into adolescence, and it follows these 2 girls, Lila and Lenu, and they also go by other names like Lena and Lenuccia, so yeah, Italian people have nicknames. They are from Naples and they live in this very closed-in neighborhood, so it follows these 2 girls, really deep friendship but also rivalry, so you get to see this very complex relationship between these 2 girls. I did think the first part was a bit slow going for me, and I didn't really get into the book until maybe around page 75, 100. A lot of it is because I think Ferrante is very different from a lot of authors in that she is mostly telling us. This is all told in a retrospective narrative, and it's just her telling you how she grew up and what she thinks about all of her neighbors and what she thinks about their lives and what she thinks about herself. There was very little dialogue in the first part, and there is very little exposition to try to let you know what this book, what this plot is going to be about. It's mostly her just telling you little stories. All of these little stories, though, are important to get you a better understanding of each character. So many things come at the end, like together, after you hear all these random stories. All these stories mean a lot when you are done with the book and you look back. Ferrante's writing is very simple and not at all what I expected. She does not waste any time like trying to be flowery or anything like that. What makes her characters so amazing is that they are so realistically written and they seem so genuine. People who I can see have so many parts to them that they feel so real. I didn't expect to love the two main characters in this story as much as I ended up loving them. There were parts where I was literally like cheering for Leela, like with my fist raised, how clever she was, and there were other parts where my heart was like breaking because I felt so much for how Lenusha was thinking as she tried to understand herself and all those people around her. I love Lenu or Elena because she is not at all pretentious. She is so honest about literally everything, even things that are a little bit embarrassing. It feels like little parts of her, I can see myself in her as well, and all the not great things that we think about ourselves and we think about our friends and our parents and everybody that's around us in our vicinity. This book also was about class and poverty a lot, and I did not expect that when I was getting into it. It focuses a lot on like the walled in and closed in feeling of this neighborhood and how retaliation and like the politics of each family and like how each family talks to each other, who gets to marry who and who gets respect because they have more money. It did set up this hierarchy in this neighborhood. So for all those reasons, I really enjoyed this book so much, more than I thought that I would, considering how I felt like the first 100 pages. But the next 200 pages, I just felt so close to these characters, and I definitely need to pick up the next book in the next year because I need to know what happens. There's sort of a cliffhanger at the end. Not a cliffhanger, but like a revelation that makes you feel like, ah, my poor girls. If you have read this book, we should talk about it because there's so much here, and this is a book that I understand why people would want to reread. I really enjoyed My Brilliant Friend. I did. And the last thing that I will talk about is the Chew comics. I read the first 2 volumes, and this was a lot more fun than I expected. It follows Tony Chew, who you can see there. He has a, quote, weird, gets extrasensory impressions from what he eats psychic superpower. Tony Chew is a federal agent with the FDA. In this world, there has been like a bird flu epidemic and a lot of people died, and so there's a prohibition on chicken, which is also really original and not something I have read. It's a very original premise, and that's what drew me to read it. I did really end up enjoying the kinds of investigations that they were doing and how they were trying to solve these investigations. There were some really cute and funny parts. There's also a lot of blood and violence, so if you're not really into that, just so you're aware that it's there. It's a story that when you read the first volume, there's a lot of setup, and when you read the second volume, you see that there are so many characters and like so many moving parts. He's just trying to figure out this web of people all trying to find some power in this world when it comes to chicken, whether it be like through the black market, whether it be through new fake chicken. It's a lot of action, a lot of fun, unexpected turns to the story. There's like 12 volumes, and I'm now on number 3. So that is it for my later half December wrap up. I still have to put together my favorites of the year. I'm really glad that I waited because I'm pretty sure this is going to be on there. I hope you've been having a lovely end of the year. Thanks so much for watching my video. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.